Judas Priest. You're looking at someone who finished all of his coursework for a degree from Ohio Wesleyan University in 1903 in 3 years. Someone with a doctor of laws. I don't know how many honorary doctors of law. Can anyone then tell me why I just spent 4 mortal hours conversing with a fellow by the name of Dizzy Dean? Lord, Lord, make me humble. Make me grateful. Make me tolerant. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my constant prayer. Though I'm not here this afternoon to pray with you. No, I'm here because I have been asked, better yet, I have been importuned. I love words like that, polysyllabic words. Importuned to muse aloud about my life in baseball. And many days of that life revolved around Mr. Dean. Truth be told, today wasn't the first time I talked to him that long, and it probably won't be the last. In fact, when we were both with the St. Louis Cardinals, it happened more times than I care to remember. And I do care to remember because Jerome was a mighty interesting character and better than a pretty fair country baseball player. Jerome Herman Dean. You see, I prefer to call all of my ball players by their Christian names. Goodness knows they need all the help they can get. Every reminder of their Christian heritage to be good baseball players. And that includes every member of my St. Louis Cardinal gas house gang. What a collection of dissolute drinkers. Irony of ironies, that team could only have been put together by yours truly, a circuit-riding preacher from the Anti-Saloon League. Oh, Lord, Lord, make me humble. Make me grateful. Make me tolerant. And what a collection of magnificent baseball players. While you're at it, Lord, make them humble. Make them grateful. Make them tolerant. That includes my third baseman. You're too young to remember, I suppose. John Leonard Martin. Pepper, the baseball fans called him. But I prefer to call him John Leonard. He spent 6 years in the Cardinal farm system. You don't want to bring up ball players too early. Start to make too much money. Besides, they had to be kept down there until they were ready to play Major League Baseball. John Leonard became a marvelous third baseman. In the 1931 World Series against the Philadelphia Athletics, he went 12 for 24. Drove in 7 runs. Nobody else on the team drove in more than 2. Got more than 5 hits. What a ball player. And my left fielder, Joseph. What a perfectly fine Christian name. Joseph Medwick. They called him Ducky. Something about the way he walked. In 1937, he won the Triple Crown in baseball. Do you know what is involved in the Triple Crown? Young fellow, do you? Anybody know what the Triple Crown entails? To win the batting title, to win the runs batted in title, and to win the home run title. Nobody in the National League has done it since Medwick did it in 1937. He hit .374, drove in 154 runs, and hit 31 home runs. Led the league in doubles, led the league in hits, led the league in runs scored. What a season. He had forearms on him. I swear he could have hit singles just off his arms. While I'm on the subject of nicknames, you might remember my Brooklyn Dodger shortstop. Anybody remember? Or if you don't remember, ever reading about my Brooklyn Dodger shortstop? Harold Reese. They called him Pee-wee. Pee Wee Reese. Something about having been a marbles champion in Kentucky. He was my little Kentucky colonel. You know what a young aide, Abraham Lincoln, one of my great heroes. I have two non-baseball playing heroes. Lincoln was one, Churchill is the other. And a young aide came to Lincoln in the depths of the Civil War. I think it was 1862 when the war was not going well at all. And came to him and said, I know the war isn't going well, Mr. President, but isn't it good to know we've got God on our side in this war? And you know what Lincoln said to him? He said, young man, I suppose it's good to know we've got God on our side, but we must have Kentucky. Yes, we must have Kentucky. Well, I had Kentucky on my side, too, in the form of Harold Reese. I took him from a helpless nothing and made him into an acceptable something. Do you know that he got 3 hits in the same, you think I'm going to say the same ball game, the same inning? 3 hits in the same inning. As I turned him into oh Lord, if you've given up, trying to make me humble, make me grateful, and make me tolerant. I can still see him, close my eyes and see him. Crosley Field in Cincinnati, right across the river from Kentucky, right across the river from slavery. Early in that historic 1947 season, I suppose if you're here for any reason at all, it has something to do with that 1947 season, whether you know it or not at this moment. He was playing shortstop, and the catcalls were raining down on my rookie first baseman. Racist catcalls. Reese walked across the diamond, put his arm around the shoulder of my rookie first baseman, quieted the entire crowd. Everyone shut up. Who was my rookie first baseman? Jack Roosevelt Robinson. If there's a one of you in here who's never heard of Jackie Robinson, you're not an American. Jack Roosevelt Robinson. I don't know if Jack is truly a Christian name, but Roosevelt certainly is. At least it used to be, because it used to be a good Republican name. And if it's a good Republican name, then in my mind, it's a good Christian name. But more on him later. I need to get back to Jerome for a minute. Jerome Herman Dean. Or was it J. Hannah Dean? I was told that he was christened J. Hannah Dean, after Jay Gould and Mark Hanna, 2 of the great capitalists of the late 19th century. But he took Jerome because a friend of his, by the name of Jerome, drowned at the age of 12. And to honor him, Dean took that name. I much prefer it because it's a much better Christian name. There was some confusion about whether he'd been born and raised in Bond, Mississippi or Lucas, Arkansas. I didn't much care about that, but I much preferred Jerome. I can still close my eyes and see him when he was a young pitcher. I can see him in his prime. I can see him striding to the mound. I can see him warming up. I can see him glaring in to get the signal. I can see him winding up and delivering the pitch. The game was over. I can see him coming into my office. Oh, he'd walk right in, pick out his favorite chair, stretch out those long legs of his, and plant them down on my desk. Before he'd done any of that, he'd open his mouth. Branch, he'd invariably begin, and just as invariably, I'd let him get away with it. Yes, I suppose for the sake of decorum and propriety, I should have insisted that he call me by my Christian name, Wesley. Wesley Branch Rickey. I suppose you can figure out after whom my Methodist mother named me. Yes, you've got it, have you? What? John Wesley. Absolutely. In fact, my second name, he, you see, was the branch left from the burning, the fire as a youth. So I became Wesley Branch Rickey. John Wesley is still trying to help me to this day not to give in to my temptations, not to surrender to my weaknesses. But I do have weaknesses. I especially have weaknesses for uninhibited ball players who also happen to be great ball players. And that includes Jerome Herman Dean or my shortstop on the Gas House Gang. I don't suppose there's a one of you in here that could even come up with the name of the shortstop on my Gas House Gang. Leo DeRocher. I've never met anyone in my life who had a more fertile talent than he for making a bad situation infinitely worse. How is it, I've often wondered, how is it I could surrender an adult's profession for a boy's game? Marks me out to be a moral coward, I suppose. That's what I did. See, I was trained in the law, as I told you at the start. And I'd been sent out to Idaho, my first job, recovering from tuberculosis. I thought the climate would be good for me. So I hung out my shingle in Boise, Idaho. Thought business would be good as well. The climate was wonderful, but business was terrible. One of the local judges felt so sorry for me that he assigned me a client, a fellow who'd been accused, as the phrase once was, of white slavery. I went to the jail to interview him. I suppose in a manner of speaking you could say he interviewed me, looked me up and down, spat at my feet, ordered me to get the hell out of his sight. Well, I did that. Retreated from the jail. I retreated from the law office, retreated from Boise, Idaho, all the way to St. Louis, Missouri. Go to work for Robert Lee Hedges of the St. Louis Browns. Yes, I suppose it does mark me out to be a moral coward. Baseball. What a game, though. What a game. It's the only game that takes each individual and melds them and welds them into a cohesive unit. It's the only game where you can be an individualist and a team player all at the same time. That's the ultimate paradox of the game. You can be an individualist and a team player at the same time. Oh, I suppose the day will come when someone will reach the extent of outer space, but to me the greatest sight in the world will always be the perfect execution of a hit and run. Well, after working for the Browns for a few years after the Great War, I went to work for the Cardinals. And before you knew it, I was dealing with Jerome Herman Dean and Leo DeRocher and you name it, any number of others. But before we get to why you were really here, I've got to tell you a little bit more about Jerome. You see, he wasn't an ordinary pitcher. He didn't just throw with velocity. Don't you love that word, velocity? A 4-syllable word. He could watch another pitcher throw a pitch and then go right out and duplicate it with all kinds of speeds and deflections. Very few pitchers can do that. Christopher Mathewson of the Giants could do that. He won everything. He had everything. He did everything. And in 16 years of major league pitching, Mathewson was never thrown out of the game. Yes, you can reach the heights of eminence in the game, he proved, without ever interfering with the prerogatives of the umpire. You do know what prerogative is, I assume. Good. If I use a word that you don't know, just raise your hand and I'll try to clear things up. Yes. Jerome could watch some pitcher throw another pitch and just go out and throw it on his own. That's what the game is all about, isn't it? What pitchers are supposed to do, to produce illusions, to make a man misjudge. No pitcher will go to baseball heaven unless he fools his share of batters. Oh, there were times that Jerome didn't feel like pitching. Sometimes I think it was about every time he was slated to take the mound. The boy loved to be babied. He loved to be wheedled. He loved to be cajoled. You know that word too, don't you? Good. I remember one game in particular. In that 1934 pennant race. Tight race right to the end. We were playing the Pirates, and he came into my office and said his arm ached like all get out. Then he he couldn't pitch. Couldn't believe it. This was a crucial game. We had to have him. Well, I told him, I said, Diz, and there were times when I called him Diz. This was one of them. I've got the mayor coming today. I've set aside choice seats for him. He's coming for one reason only, to see you pitch. I can still see him scratching his head. He said, well, Mr. Rickey, there were times when he called me Mr. Rickey. Maybe I can give it a go. I said, just give it a go to one batter. You just pitch to one batter, and it'll leave me fine with the mayor. Well, as you imagine, he went out there and did more than that. He pitched a complete game, a 3-hit shutout, struck out 12. He was wonderful that year. He won 30 games. Nobody in the National League has won 30 games since Jerome did it in 1934. 30-7 he was. The next year he was 28-12. The year after that he was 24-13. You can see the trend. I should have traded him right then and there. Always trade a ball player a year too early rather than a year too late. Are you writing that down? That's worth writing down. Always trade a ball player a year too early rather than a year too late. I don't know. Maybe it was the line drive he took off the bat of Earl Averill in the 1937 All-Star game. Hit the boy in the big toe, right foot. Tried to come back too soon, and nothing could save him. Nothing. So I traded him the next year to the Cubs. Anytime you want to get rid of a ball player, you trade him to the Cubs. 3 ball players and $185,000. You see, out of quantity comes quality. That was behind my trades. That was behind my farm system. I invented the farm system. Oh, Lord, I know you've given up on making me humble. Make me grateful. Make me tolerant. Yes, the farm system where ball players ripen into money. Yes, it was said once about me that Branch Rickey never wanted ball players. He liked ball players, and he liked money. He just never wanted the two of them to get together. Well, not everyone approved of my revolutionary experiment in the farm system. The commissioner of baseball didn't approve of it. Is there anyone in here who remembers or knows who the commissioner of baseball was in the 1930s? You don't know? Not a soul? Who is it now? No, never mind. Kennesaw Mountain Landis. That was his name, Kennesaw Mountain Landis. Isn't that just about the most unchristian name you've ever heard of? Sort of fit him, though, because he was an unchristian fellow. He opposed my farm system. Maybe you've seen pictures of him. Craggy face, shaggy mane of white hair. I'd go to meet with him, to plead with him. How can a team in St. Louis compete against cities like Chicago, New York, unless we had an edge, and the farm system was the edge? But he looked at me impassively and refused to budge. Yes, he was an actor, really. That's what he was. In fact, that writer in New York, Haywood Broun, said about him or wrote about him that he was the only actor he ever met who had the presence of mind never to go on stage. Well, and in addition to that, he put a stop to Negro ball players playing in the major leagues. You won't read about this in the history books, but my friend Bill Veck told me it was true. He wanted to buy the Philadelphia Phillies in 1943 and stock that team with Negro League ball players. And Landis got wind of it and stopped it. Stopped it cold. I believe Beck. Now, to this day, I don't know whether I should condemn Landis or thank him for giving me a chance to do that very thing a few years later. Baseball. I've been accused of turning it into a business. Well, it was always a business. But it's more than a business. It's a way of life. It's an institution. A quasi-public American institution. Yes, franchise is a tremendous thing for a town. Here it is 1955, isn't it? Ah, thank you. I was a little worried for a second. But yes, since you didn't know who Landis was, or Pee Wee Reese, but it is 1955. There are all kinds of rumors that the Brooklyn Dodgers, my old team, are going to be moved by Walter O'Malley, who now owns it, who forced me out a few years ago. Walter may be a Christian name, but he's not a Christian man. Yes. You can't put a dollar sign on the value of a baseball franchise to a town. But you've got to be able to put a dollar sign on the muscle. That's what I thought I could do. That's what spring training was all about. Put a dollar sign on the muscle. Or to judge what was in a ball player's heart. To judge whether he really had it in him to be a good big league ball player, to be a winning ball player. Yes, that's what spring training was supposed to be. To find out if they had zest. I know zest is only a one-syllable word, but it's a marvelous word. Find out if ball players have it. Willie Mays has zest. My shortstop on the Pirates, I just was running them. Richard Grote had zest. It's not a thing that's easy to judge. I'll be the first to admit it. Sometimes luck is involved. For the most part, luck is nothing more than the residue of design. That may be the second thing I've said that's worth writing down. Luck is nothing more than the... What kind of a contraption is that? A contraption is that? Maybe you could write it down there somehow. Luck is nothing more than the residue of design. That's what I thought I was doing when I was running baseball teams. But to give you a little idea, I know you probably came here, if for any reason at all, to hear something more about the Jackie Robinson story, and I'll get to it. But I first have to tell you a little bit about spring training. So that was a time where you taught people how to win and how to play the game correctly. No one had a sliding pit. I know you've given up, Lord, on making me humble, but I invented sliding pits. But that isn't the only pit that's important. Yes, it's important to find out if they've got what's going on in the pit of their stomach when the game is on the line, even a spring training game. And to teach them how to avoid the pits of hell. That's important as well. All three of those pits are important. I like to work with young pitchers. I'd go out to one of the mounds, spring training, and I would put on this old duck cap. Try to work with young pitchers. You're going to have to pretend there's a young pitcher here. What's your name, son? How old are you? Where are you from? You want to show me your fastball? I'll let you do it, young man, but if you weren't fast, you wouldn't be here. There are three things I can't teach you. I can't teach you how to throw a ball hard. I can't teach you how to run fast. I can't teach you how to hit a ball far. Do you know what flows from that? You know what flows inexorably from that? You know what inexorably means? Good. It means I can teach you everything else. All right, let's see your fastball. You got a curveball? You mind showing me how you hold yours? You know why? You know what governs the speed of a baseball? How far did you go in school, young man? What governs the speed of a baseball is your arm, of course. Anything else? Your leg. Sure. Anything else? Tell you what it is, young fella, it's your wrist. You got a strong wrist? Here, take this baseball, put it in the palm of your hand. Reach your arm right back, and then just flip it. Just flip it with your wrist. I want to see that. You drink or smoke, young fella? You married? Why not? You a coward? Now, what governs the speed of the ball? It's your arm, it's your leg, it's your wrist. What governs the speed of the rotation on the ball? That would be the pressure of your fingers on the baseball. You write home? You got to write home, young man. Once a week, you got to write home. Now, what governs the direction of the ball? That would be the position of your fingers on the baseball. You go to church? You got to go to church, young fella. If you at least got a girl, the most important thing in life, young fellow, is finding a mate. And the most important thing is keeping her. You know how you do that? Loyalty to her, young man. Loyalty. Regularity in everything you do. Predictability in all of your habits. And devotion. Devotion, yes. You know how you win baseball games? Loyalty. Loyalty to your teammates. Loyalty to your town. Regularity in all of your habits. Predictability in your pitching motion. And deception. It's almost the same thing as winning a girl, but not quite. You surprised her with a ring yet? You know how you surprise a batter? There are two ways of surprising a batter. One is the sphere of space, and the other is the sphere of time. Yes, you got to make one pitch so that it dives, and the next pitch hops and rises. Then you got to have a pitch that is fast, and then you got to take some speed off, and then you got to put it back on. Can you do that, young fella? That's what you got to be able to do at winning. You see, it's almost like winning a girl. When it comes time to winning a girl, what do you got to do? You got to deliver different pitches, all in the same devoted way. And when it comes to winning baseball games, you got to deliver this. You got to deliver the same. You got to use the same motion and deliver all kinds of different pitches. But it's always got to be the same motion. To win a girl, it's different things. You do that. You met her parents yet? They met you? Do they approve? Remember, loyalty. Predictability and devotion. When it comes to baseball, loyalty, regularity, predictability, and deception. Now, suppose you didn't come here to listen to what I might have said to any number of nameless, faceless prospects, the Dodgers or the Cardinals or the Pirates, Browns. I suppose if you came here for any reason at all, it was to find out what went on in the Cave of the Winds on August 28, 1945. Cave of the Winds? That would be my office, 215 Montague Street in Brooklyn. August 28th. That would be the day that my chief scout, Clyde Sukeforth, showed up with a mightily intriguing prospect in tow. Slightly older than usual prospect, but a mightily intriguing prospect nonetheless. Sukeforth had scouted him. He was a college boy, an Army veteran, a great baseball player. We knew he could hit. We knew he could run. We knew he could field. We didn't know if he could get the ball from short. That's what he played, shortstop, deep in the hole, all the way to first with some mustard on it. Sukeforth was sent out to Chicago to see about that. They were playing in Comiskey Park. The White Sox played. They weren't playing, of course, in the Major Leagues. He was playing for the Kansas City Monarchs in the Negro League. See, the big league teams would let Negro League teams use their facilities. They'd pay them for it. They rented it. They let him play on the ball field. They wouldn't let him use the locker room. They wouldn't let him shower, if you can believe it. They did let them play on the field. They went out there to scout Robinson. Discovered he was on the shelf, fallen on his shoulder, and was out of the lineup for a few days. Well, Sukeforth knew I wanted to meet him because, you see, we were going to create a new Negro League entirely. We were going to have a team in it, the Brooklyn Brown Dodgers. But you know, it was all a ruse. It was all a ruse. I wanted him to play right in Ebbets Field for the Brooklyn Dodgers. But I had to have this elaborate ruse to get this whole plot going. He knew I wanted to meet him. I've often wondered what Charles Thomas had to do with all of this. I don't suppose you've ever heard of Charles Thomas. This takes me all the way back for just a moment, if you bear with me, to Delaware, Ohio, and Ohio Wesleyan University. Yes, not far from where I'd grown up, in Stockdale, Ohio, or where I'd taught school in Turkey Creek, Ohio. But in another sense, it was worlds away. Yes, I'd gone there to study history, philosophy, and literature, play baseball. I was a catcher. I have my brother Orla to thank for that. He was 19 and home for the summer. He wanted to be a big league pitcher. He needed a catcher. So a catcher I became. I caught my freshman year at Ohio Wesleyan. I had a pretty good year. And that summer, I played semi-pro ball for the Portsmouth Navies, $50 a month. We needed it. The president learned of this, called me into his office when I got back to campus in the fall. Did I take money to play baseball in the summer? I said, yes, sir, I did. That was it. My college career was over. Told him I didn't know about the rule, but I said, sir, I would have taken the money anyway. We needed the money. Next spring rolled around and they needed a coach. The president came to me and said, well, you can't play French, but would you coach the team? I looked at him and I said, sir, if you pay me, I will. And he did. I wish I had time to tell you about all of my ball players, but I can't. I have to tell you about Charles. You see, there weren't very many Negro students at Ohio Wesleyan then, but he was one of them. He wanted to be a dentist. And you know something? That's what he became. A dentist in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He was a catcher and a first baseman. First game I coached, we were playing Kentucky. The University of Kentucky in Lexington. I could see the whispers going on as they looked at Charles. When it came time for us to go to bat and for them to go to the field, they wouldn't take the field. I went to the opposing coach and an argument ensued. Charles was in the lineup. Yes, we first endure, then we pity, and finally we embrace. You recognize those words? I'd read them in college. In Alexander Pope's essay on man, vice is a monster of so frightful mien, as to be hated needs but to be seen, yet seen too oft, familiar with her face. We first endure, then we pity, and finally we embrace. You see, he thought, the opposing coach and the players, that having to play with a Negro ball player was a vice. Well, they ultimately did play. Charles was in the lineup. The next year, the main culprit was a hotel clerk in South Bend, Indiana. We'd gone to play Notre Dame. We checked in. He took one look at Charles and said, under no circumstances will he stay in this hotel. He did offer to go to the Negro district to find a place for Charles. While he was gone, I commandeered a cot, moved it into my room. It became our room. That night, we had a chalk talk right in our room. As I was talking away about the game the next day, Charles was sitting off in the corner by himself. Still close my eyes and see him sitting there, his great staring eye, tears streaming down his cheeks. Shoulders began to heave convulsively. He took one great hand and rubbed it against the other. I could hear him muttering to himself, black skin, if only I could make it white. What did I do? Judas Priest, I was 22 at the time. I said, buck up, Charles. Buck up. I knew someday I would do something to make up for what had happened to Charles Thomases of this world. I know he was on my mind as I came to my office. Cave of the Winds. That's what New York writers called it. That morning on August 28th. Oh, everything's all put away. You're going to have to imagine my office here. There were pictures on the wall behind my desk of my heroes. You remember my two heroes, don't you? You don't remember my two, and he's getting out of here before I'm going to pick on him. Very good, young lady. Abraham Lincoln and Winston Churchill. People who've never seen a curveball, much less hit one or thrown one. But pictures of my ball players, my favorite ball players. There was a picture of DeRocher up there who was managing my Dodger team at this point. A picture of my first Hall of Famer, Dick Sisler. We were fraternity brothers at Michigan. And I signed him. He's now in the Hall of Fame. He was initially a pitcher. He beat Walter Johnson twice in the same year, 1-0 and 2-1. But I made him into a hitter. I've done that with 3 pitchers, Stan Musial, Charles Hafey, and Dick Sisler. He was a great fielder. He participated in the most amazing triple play I've ever seen. He was playing first base. There's a runner on first, a runner on third. A fly ball is hit to right field. The right fielder catches it, throws it to Sisler at first to double up the runner who can't get back on first base. And Sisler wheels and fires it home and catches the runner coming in to score on the sacrifice fly. I've never seen a triple play like that in my life. He set a record that'll never be broken. 257. Anyone want to guess what that is? In one season, 257 what? Oh, you're thinking, young fellow. 257 hits in one season. It'll never be broken. At least not by an American. It won't be broken. Well, I don't know what Robinson first saw when he came in. I don't have a desk here, so you're going to have to imagine that I was seated behind my desk. We looked at each other for what seemed an eternity. And finally, I asked the first question. Better put the baseball down and retrieve my cigar. The first question was, you got a girl, Robinson? Well, he looked at me for a minute and he said, yes, he did, but he didn't know if she could count on him, what with all of the traveling he was going to have to do. I said, is she the one? He said, yes, he thought she was the one. So I told him something that I changed my advice. Well, I told him marry her. And marry her a year too soon rather than a year too late. Because you're going to need all the help you can get. You know why you were brought here? He said it was something about the Brown Dodgers. But that's not it at all. You were brought here to play for the Brooklyn Dodgers. A year in Montreal with the Montreal Royals, and then, if everything goes well, right here in Brooklyn. You think you can do it? Well, after another eternity, he said yes. He thought he could do it. Of course, that's what I wanted to hear. But it wasn't all I wanted to hear. My scouts had done their work. They knew he was a ball player. We didn't know he was such an incredible 2-strike hitter. I've never, ever watched a batter who was better than he with 2 strikes on him. And he was awfully good in the clutch as well. I said, Sukforth here tells me you're a ball player. I'll take his word for it. I had to find out some other things. I had to find out how deep his sense of racial resentment was. If it was personal to him, I didn't want him. If he had some comprehensive understanding of the racial problem in this country and saw it as something beyond just him, I wanted him. And had he conquered himself? You haven't conquered yourself, you're not going to be able to conquer anything else. I wanted to get a sense of that as well. And did he have a Booker T. Washington understanding of the importance of gradualness when it came to changing racial conditions in this country? If he had that, I wanted it. And did he have courage? Did he have moral courage? Ty Cobb had physical courage, but he had absolutely no moral courage. He was a horrid human being. Robinson, did he have moral courage? Well, Sukforth tells me you can play the game, I repeated. And then I asked him, you got the guts? Have you got the guts that's going to take to do what you're going to have to do? He misunderstood me. He said, of course I do. I can take anybody. That's not what I wanted to know. Have you got the guts, Robinson, not to fight back, no matter what happens? And not just for a game or two, but for 3 years, 3 seasons. You've got to promise me you're not going to fight back no matter what happens for 3 seasons. Before he could answer, I assumed a variety of poses. I became a bench jockey, letting loose with every racial epithet I could think of. Then I became a second baseman. He'd be sliding into second. I would tag him as hard as I could. How did you like that, nigger boy? Then I became a hotel clerk, denying him a room, and a waiter, denying him a meal. How can you take it? Can you take all of that? Before he could answer, I curled my fist around, walked up to him, and unleashed a blow and said, how do you like that, you son of a bitch? Can you take that, you black son of a bitch? For another eternity, he finally replied. He said, yes, Mr. Rickey, I get it. You want to know if I've got 2 cheeks. That's right. That's what I needed to know. But then he went on and he said, I can do it. I can promise that I won't fight back. But you can't expect me to be a cringing fellow. You can't expect me to be obsequious. I heard that word, obsequious. And I knew I had the right fellow. A college boy, an Army veteran, a good Christian, a great ball player, and a polysyllabic fellow all rolled into one. Then it was time to do a little business. I asked him if he had a contract with the Kansas City Monarchs. He said, no, he just worked day to day. That was music to my ears. He said, you're going to have a contract, and here it is. You're going to play for $600 a month, and I'll give you a $3,500 signing bonus. This time I didn't expect an answer. My ball players didn't negotiate contracts with me. They signed them. Well, I wish I had time to tell you about all the great seasons that Robinson had and the pennants the Dodgers won. And finally, just this year, the World Series. But I was forced out years ago, and those would be their stories, not mine. I would be a hypocrite if I talked about them. I've been accused of being a hypocrite because I wouldn't go to baseball games on Sunday. I didn't play baseball games on Sunday. It was a promise to my Methodist mother. That was it. And I didn't violate it, except once to promote war bonds during the Second World War. Otherwise, I never showed up at the ballpark, much less played on Sunday. So I'm going to leave it right there and let you someday read about the boys of summer and read about Jack Robinson and Gilbert Hodges and Edwin Snyder and William Cox and Clement Labine and Roy Campanella and George Shuba. All of those great ball players. Those are their stories, not mine. So let me just leave you with these few words. Lord, make me humble. Make me grateful. Make me tolerant. And Lord, while you're at it, make trees grow and pennants fly once again in the streets of Brooklyn.